university life. Was choosing electrical engineering a deliberate challenge to push your limits? Yes, it was. At that age, still don't know exactly what I want to do. You have interests, but what does that mean? How does that translate? Well, I did take, I did like, growing up, I was always the person that the brothers and sisters and mom and dad would have putting the new electronics equipment together, VCR, recorder, fixing this or fixing that. And so I tinkered and I learned. My mother bought me my first computer. Actually, she didn't buy it. We couldn't afford to buy it. So this was in 11th grade. She actually bartered for it. So she painted and did a person's house, and in return, they provided the computer. So that's how she bartered for it. Yeah. But that opened up a new world for me. And I gravitated, took a course in basic electronics when I was in high school and enjoyed it as well. So when I went for my scholarship, when I was talking, excuse me, to the university representative and also to the individuals prior to applying for my scholarship to find out what scholarships have the best probabilities of being awarded and most opportunity. So with that, I remember asking the specific question. Engineering, of course, was the natural avenue for that, as well as some of my interest in solving problems in building electronics and it was the best opportunity for scholarships. And I asked specifically, I asked, so what's the hardest one you have here? And they said that would definitely be the electrical engineering program. So that was the one I signed up for. Because if you can do that, then you can do any of it. That's kind of the way I looked at it. If I can do it. Now, when I do that, I should say, I'll be able to do any of it. And they weren't kidding. It was hard. To date, it was. No job I've ever had has ever been as hard as what it took to earn that degree. It was many years of long nights, lots of weekend studies, of learning how to study. And learning how to crack the nut, so to speak. But what it instilled was fundamental. And definitely part of the way I look at the world, can be seen in terms of engineering. And How old was I when I started university? I was 18. I was 18. 1991. I was 18. Factoid, I actually was, when my peers in high school were hitting puberty and growing tall and lean and muscular, I was already lean. And when I finally hit puberty, I hit it late. I hit it like 17. Most of them had already started in, you know, 15, 16. At 17. And when I finally shaved, I think it was 17. And a little bit of peach fuzz. And, but I didn't grow tall. I grew out. Like, the universe must have a really sense of humor, because seriously, instead of getting taller and muscular, I went from skinny to putting on a decent amount of weight, not fat, but with my body type, it doesn't take a lot to feel like that. So I was at 168 or so, which was, and I would spend the next 2 years running, exercising, training to earn my place in the at airborne school, where I would eventually trim off the rest of that baby fat. And when I left airborne school, I was at 145. And I can still fit into the same clothes today that I wore then. So yeah, it was a pivotal time. I mean, foundational kind of time. But yeah, I mean, seriously, really, instead of growing up and getting some muscles, I put on pounds. It's not right, man. It's just not right. Oh well. But it also, that also just made me want to lose it that much more, because it didn't feel good. It wasn't something that I wanted to. I wanted to be fit, especially having now been joined in the Army ROTC, and we have the PT tests and the 2-mile runs, and so I had to work on my physical fitness. I was not there. I was not a natural runner. I was not a natural athlete. I had to work for it. And eventually, that running would become, I would extend that running well beyond the training I had to do for pleasure, for fun, for enjoyment and travel, and it would take on a life of its own. How hard was it to complete my engineering degree? I think I just answered that question. Yeah. Were my parents proud of me? Yeah. They were proud of me. They would have been proud of me regardless of what degree I got. But yes, they were very much proud of me. Most importantly, I was proud of me. How did I balance Army training with engineering studies? On very little sleep. Typically, especially the last year and a half or two of my degree, it would be, my routine would be school, after class, go to dinner, make your way over to the engineering building where you will be in the engineering lab or study. Often till 2 in the morning when they closed the building down or kicked you out. They would actually you had to leave at 2, and then you'd be back up in the 6 time frame, getting ready for physical training, PT, with the Army ROTC. That was yeah. And then after ROTC, you would go take a shower, clean up, grab breakfast, and then go to class. And you'd repeat that for the most part. Now, occasionally you wouldn't have to go to you didn't always have to go to the engineering building, but it was commonplace, is the best way to put it. On Friday nights, I would actually drive home, and my mother and I had a tradition. My mother, myself, and my younger sister would go to Mexican dinner to a restaurant every Friday night. That was our thing, and we did that for pretty much not the entire time, but a good percentage of the time. And then on Saturday, I would drive back to school, where I would study and do homework and study at the engineering building, or the library didn't work for me so well, but the engineering building worked great. There's a room up. I could go upstairs in a corner, big windows, double chalkboard tables, and it was off the beaten path, so no distractions. And in the evenings, you got to caught the sunset, which was nice. And if you ever needed help, you could go downstairs and find somebody, usually in the engineering lab, that was working on a similar project or something that you could brainstorm with. So, and then on Saturday night, I would drive back home, stay overnight at home with my mom, and Sunday I would go to church myself, Second Baptist. And then after church, my mom would take care of my laundry for me, which was very helpful for a college student, and I would pack it up and say my goodbyes, and I would head back to university Sunday night. And on good nights, I didn't have to go into the engineering lab, but there were many nights that I had to go into the engineering lab. So it was a tough program. It was a tough program, but it was well worth it. Plus, I also was a member of the Ranger Challenge team while I was there. So our extracurricular team, and we competed against other universities and that had ROTC. And my last year, I was a part of that program, and we were doing our senior design project. So it was a tough year. What academic requirements did I have to meet to maintain a scholarship? I had to have B or higher, no C's or D's. And except for one class, I was able to. There's only one class I ever had a C in, and that was Calculus 2. Remember, when I graduated high school, I was in trigonometry and pre-calculus. I didn't have calculus yet. I just barely qualified to get into calculus. So calculus was new for me, and I struggled with it. I got through calculus 1 okay. Calculus 2, was it was harder for me because I couldn't see it. I you could plug and chug the numbers, but I didn't understand what I was. Why was I doing where were the numbers coming from? Why was I doing this? What I did. There was a piece missing, and I couldn't see it. I didn't understand it, and so I got a C plus, I think, in that class, and so I had to retake it. So I retook it the following quarter, and I'd already had my schedule done, so I was taking Calculus 3 as well. So I took Calculus 2 and Calculus 3 in the same quarter. And though it is not something that you would normally recommend, it worked to my advantage. Because the thing that I was missing, I found. Calculus 2 and Calculus 3 are essentially the same, except Calculus 2 is specific to a two-dimension environment, and Calculus 3 is specific to a three-dimensional area. So, for example, if you have and so what I was missing was context. Once I could see that, and once I saw it in three dimensions, it easily translated to two dimensions. Because two dimensions, all you're doing with, I don't want to bore you with math, but when it comes to integrations, in Calculus 2, you're taking a slice and you're finding out the area of that slice. In Calculus 3, you're taking the area of that slice and adding it to all the other slices. Once I could see it in three dimensions, it actually made sense. I was no longer just putting numbers in. I actually understood what we were doing, why we were doing it, and where the numbers were coming from. That was the piece that I was missing. And from that point forward, I took to it much, much better. In fact, I actually did very well in both of those courses. And when I took the following course, Probability and Statistics, which was calculus based, I got an A. I mean, and that was a pretty hard course as well. And the cool part is, while walking outside the auditorium, our instructor, the same instructor that had taught me calculus 1, 2, and 4. Oh, excuse me, I took Calculus 4 too. Calculus 4 I did extremely well. I made an A in. And then I took Probability and Statistics and made an A in. And after that, the professor had actually caught me outside, and I was with my friend Chris, who is a mathematics. That was his degree, mathematics. And we took some of the same courses together. And he was just blown away how well I had improved in math from when he had first started teaching me to when I had finished those courses, and he was just blown away with it, and my friend Chris he's so funny. He said, "I got an A too." And the instructor's like, yes, you did great, Chris. Now, John, Chris still, when I talked to him years back, and he still recounts that story because he's like, yeah. So yeah, cute little story. But yeah, for me, sometimes I need to see things. I need to see things differently in order for me to understand them. And when I get it, and I'm able to take it to that next level. But without that understanding, I don't own it. It's just plugging and chugging. So, yeah. the additional things that I had to do for my degree when it came to university, uh, being part of the ROTC program, there were additional courses I had to take in addition to my engineering course load that normally an engineer wouldn't take for my degree and my scholarship. And so some of them were, I needed a foreign language component. Well, so I decided I took vernacular Greek, who taught by the guy who wrote the book that we used in the liberal arts department. And for a liberal art course I needed, I took constitutional law and modern political philosophy, which I truly enjoyed, very much enjoyed. Not to mention, those liberal arts courses really help balance your load. They don't require nearly as much work on the front end or on a daily basis that the engineering and math courses do. Engineering and math courses, you have homework every day. And yes, the homework is collected, and yes, it's graded, and yes, there are quizzes, and yes, there are, in addition to the midterms and the final exam. Yeah, it is constant work to be done. And most of those courses, especially the engineering courses, are only 3 credit hours. And then you have a lab that's 1 credit hours, but that lab itself could take 3 hours for the lab plus an additional 3 to 6 hours for the write-up. So it was a lot of work on that end, whereas the liberal arts course is 5 hours, and you submit a paper, maybe. Usually you submit a paper somewhere in the mid portion, and then you have the final exam. That was it. Very different course load requirements, and so you would use the liberal arts courses to balance your credit hour, your schedule and credit hours against the engineering. And then of course you also had to take military science was required. We also had to take. My overall university experience was great. Ups and downs. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and it was challenging. It truly was. But I met great people. I had a really great core group of friends, and classmates. We worked very well together, and though the first year was extremely hard, in that I had to learn how to study in that environment and make the grade. Studying in my room didn't work. Too many distractions, too confining. Studying in the library, I like the library. Too much activity, too many distractions. So eventually, I worked my way to the engineering building, and finding a sweet spot where you try this and try that. I found a place where I could do my work, do it well, and get work done. That was instrumental. Till then, it was hard because you haven't yet learned how to balance your load of work. You don't know which instructors are preferred versus which ones are not. You haven't figured that part out yet. That first year is all about figuring that stuff out. But it was good. It was good. I enjoyed engineering. I enjoyed the drafting. We learned to draft, and I actually one exercise we had to use Play-Doh to create a model, and and then draft out the model using the various equipment. I actually earned an award for most creative use of Play-Doh. Yes, in fact, I did. It was good. And then we a big part of my was physical fitness, getting into shape, you know, the Ranger Challenge team, competing, running, and during the summer and our junior year, we had our 6 week advanced camp, or not, basically the ROTC boot camp at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That was, that's where you are evaluated and in over 6 weeks, and it weighs very heavily into whether you get your choice assignments or not. So it was very important, and the training that we did during the summer and during different exercises along the school year would lead up to that pinnacle moment where we would be evaluated. So it was lots of activity, lots of activity, lots of activity, and I've already addressed addressed the addressed middle school and high school. So middle school, we already talked about seventh grade, and with my dad, and then eighth grade I went back to California, lived with my mom on the ranch. We talked about that. That was a good year, hard year. Last part not good, but the part before definitely good. And but finances were still lean. I mean, at that time, Reebok high tops were the thing, and if you were cool, you had Reebok high tops, and couldn't afford Reebok high tops, and I remember, a little envious of others that did have them. Not really upset that they had them, just I would like to have had them too. Just part of the, growing up stuff, fitting in stuff. But always, that year in California was a good year. I began to open back up from my time in Georgia when living on the ranch even more was a really good experience. Learning to drive, stick shift, great experience. Went to my first dance after I graduated, and I graduated 8th grade. We had a little ceremony and everything, and got dressed up in a nice little shirt, and my mom came, and the teacher actually paid for me to go to the dance because I wasn't sure if I was going to go or not. So that was my first dance, and it was a nice experience. Didn't know what to do, but it was a nice experience. Just hanging out with people. And graduating. Yeah, walking across the stage. So yes, was I able to validate my scholarship out easily after the first year? Easily? No. Able? Yes. Second year, got better, and by the third year, uh, I was inducted into the Tau Beta Pi National Engineering Honor Society. So my academics had improved significantly uh, once I got the hang of it. Once I got hang of the environment, the familiarity, um, and through that initial hump of transition, each year got better and better. My senior year, we had our senior design project, and I was the project manager for our senior design. We picked our own teams, and we went typically what they want you, they being the instructors, collectively want the project teams to be multifaceted. So you have your project manager, you have your industrial engineer, have your technical writer, perhaps have an electrical engineer or a mechanical engineer or a biomedical engineer, but it would be a multi-disciplined type of team. And we however went against the grain a little bit. They didn't oppose us doing it. They just, of course, advised us that it might be to our advantage to have different disciplines. What happened is myself, my friend, who's also an ROTC, Tim, and another friend, Chuck, we worked quite well together. But we were all electrical engineers. So what we decided to do on the project, and on our design project, is we decided to we each had we were electrical engineers, but we each had a specialization that we had interest in. So Chuck was the electrical engineer's electrical engineer. That's what he was. He liked the coding part, and he liked the circuit design specifically. He took that nugget. Tim, he liked the mechanical piece of it, so he took the mechanical piece of our project. I liked the project management and the industrial engineering, technical design and writing portion. So I took that portion of it, and we worked together on that as a team for the year. And I am proud to say that with much work, we were recognized the top senior design project for our class of 96, and awarded the top senior design award. So, and it came with it came with a few $100 check, actually, that we split up amongst ourselves. And so that was a cool thing. And it definitely stoked the fires of my interest in project management, in design, in as well, of course, engineering, which would all play out in my career. And believe it or not, be instrumental in my recovery. The other notable accomplishments during the university year. Uh, yes, the notable would be being on the Ranger Challenge team. That was a big deal. I was elected the president of the IEEE Institute for Electrical Electronics Engineers chapter for our school. And also the Order of the Engineer when I graduated. So considered, and the Tau Beta Pi, consider graduation with honors. So yeah. But I think the biggest let me answer the question: how hard is the engineering program? When I started as a freshman on scholarship, there were right at, I want to say, 24 engineering students, RTC students that were engineers or starting the engineering study. 4.5 years later, of that group, only 4 graduated as engineers. That pretty much says it all, don't you think?